cities of the Levites, and there were 48 of them, they were also places where these refugees could go to. And those were holy cities. So the idea of the city of refuge is to have this person, if he did something unintentionally, it means God caused that to come into his life because he probably was not living the most positive way. So God arranges that he should meet with much better people, an environment with as much better people. So yes, so the idea of myself going in to the prison and bringing in humanity and making sure that they feel connected to the Jewish community and make sure that they could do Passover and they could hear the Megillah on Purim and they could light the Shabbat candles and the Hanukkah candles and they could hear the shofar and they could pray and have a Torah. And on the tablets now everybody gets tablets like this now on the inside, and there's all types of Jewish content that they could get. So yes, while they're there, they definitely should do everything, and our goal is to give them as many tools as possible where they could reframe their life and change the way they think and rethink some of the things they were doing in the past, and that for them to make lifestyle changes so when they get out, not only will they not go back in, the people that I see, the recidivism rate returning to prison after you get out in the United States is over 50%. The people that I see over the last 40 years, it's less than 10%. So I'm providing public safety. I want people to be safe from these people when they get out because now they're going to be good people and they're not going to go back in. You know how much it costs for a person to be in prison? It costs an arm and a leg. It costs more than to educate a child in school. So we could have more schools and less prisons and safer streets by doing this work.
I have another question, and then I will mute because I will need to drop. Do you find yourself, in normal Jewish households, especially the ones that are Orthodox or close to the religion, they finding in many of the times the rabbis to be their confidant person, basically speaking with them personal issues, family issues, things that they've done. Do you find yourself taking the same position with the Jews in the prison, or you separating between your obligation as a rabbi to provide them the environment, or you're acting also as a confidant, confidant person if needed?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question. I also just want to give a picture of the typical Jewish individual that I will see in a correctional facility. Mostly will not be someone who's ever gone to a Hebrew school, ever gone to a Jewish day school, anybody who got a bar mitzvah, anybody who went to even a Sunday school. It doesn't matter what type of temple, Reform, Conservative, anybody who's affiliated and has done any of those things. Is very rare that any of those individuals end up in a correctional facility. Most of the people I am seeing are unaffiliated, are very assimilated, a lot of them coming from mixed marriages, and so the point is that the stronger one's connection is on the street to their Jewish roots, it's very unlikely they're ever going to see the inside of a prison. So the group of people I'm seeing are sometimes very disconnected from Judaism in general. A lot of them, I could visit them for 10 years. I offer to put on tefillin with them. I pray with them. I bring them the stuff for Passover and for Hanukkah, but they really know almost nothing about their Jewish faith. So a lot of times my only connection with them is being a confidant with them, and is being that I might do that more than the religious service part. Because sometimes I see a person alone for an hour, and we're able to delve into why did they think they got there in their life, and they open up and they reveal many different things to me, and then I do my best to help them heal and to set a direction for them where they can improve their life. So I might do the second thing you asked, being a confidant, more than the religious parts.
Amazing.
Thank you for your
So,
answer.
sure. Let me jump in with another question. So when we were chatting over the other week at the Shabbos table, you mentioned something that really stuck with me, Rabbi, which is that, we're really falling short with the Jewish community when it comes to Jewish organizations. Can you talk a little bit more about what you've seen in terms of what do we need to do better? Because you talked about how certain Jewish organizations that are very popular, very well-known organizations, we don't need to name any, but just in general, organizations we've all heard of that they tend to have a pretty negative attitude towards Jewish people that were once incarcerated and are now back into society, that oftentimes they don't want anything to do with them, let alone they don't want to support them. What have you seen in this area, and what do you think is going on with that?
So, sometimes you meet societies of people that, like, they're 10 years behind everybody else. Um,
Yeah.
I think that if you would go to the south side of Chicago, or you would go to the west side of Chicago, and as we know, there's a very, very large percentage of uh, individuals in prison that come from those areas. In those neighborhoods, there's just so many wraparound reentry groups, people looking to teach people trades, get housing. That I mean, they're just all over the place. It's almost like I wanted to share an anecdote. Um, when I first started going to the prisons, I was not yet going in as a contractor. I was still going to the visiting rooms. It took time to break in to get a little respect coming into prison. And I remember in the visiting room, I would go on a Sunday, and all the families would come. It looked like they just came from their services on Sunday. They were all dressed up, and it's almost like it was all part of family life. Sometimes your brother, your father, your uncle, your aunt, your cousin. It's like, hey, we get bar mitzvah. Some people go to prison. It's more of the style of the community, unfortunately. So in the Jewish community in many areas of society spent decades in denial. There are no wife beaters in the Jewish community. There are no alcoholics in the Jewish community. There are no heroin addicts in the Jewish community. There are no cocaine addicts. There are no, I mean, people are just in denial that these things are even going on. The community is just that we don't. Oh, that's not by us. And certainly, oh, we don't have any criminals. We don't have. Who goes to prison? There's no Jews in prison. So I think the community, while other communities came to the reality, yes, these things are real. They are happening, and we have to now prepare people when they come home. Everybody's going to come home. We have to figure out how to heal them. We have to know how to treat them. We have to know how to reemploy them and keep them on the streets. So in the Jewish community, it's much more of a shame. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? So if somebody in the Jewish community commits a crime, not only the person that goes to prison is in trouble, but the congregation sometimes shuns the mother and the wife and the siblings and the children of this individual. 8 to 10 people are sort of like everybody starts looking at them crooked, and they didn't even the family members, they didn't do anything wrong, but they're shunned. Like, what are you doing? We don't need somebody in our congregation who committed a crime. It's a black eye on the whole synagogue. We don't want you over here. So there's a lot of that attitude, uh, and I think eventually the Jewish community is like maybe 10 or 15 years behind, but I think they're going to join the rest of society and realize that, come to grips, just like the Jewish community has come to grips that there's alcoholism, and then there's an organization like Shalva, which deals with domestic abuse, and there's Jewish addiction groups, and there's mental health problems, which again, that's another area the Jewish community had 10 years behind coming to grips with. So I think with the criminal justice system, the society, the Jewish communities will eventually come around to what everybody else is doing. I just think people are behind because it's like such a shocking thing. It's like people that even can't even believe that it happened, and it's people having a hard time processing the whole that such a thing even exists. And I'm doing this 40 years, and there are organizations that are coming around and coming to support us much more. This in May, our organization Hinda is going to be honoring Ma'ot Chitim. They're a organization that feeds the needy. And 40 years ago, one of their executive directors said, "You know what, Rabbi? I think every Jew you see in the prison is poor. I'm going to make sure we provide Passover food." And for 40 years, they've been the supplier of these Passover meals that I'm bringing into the prisons. So the Ma'at Chitim came on board 40 years ago. Some other organizations are still catching up.
Wow. So it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, we're so proud as a Jewish community of our success, our accomplishments, the fact that we're very we do good things in society, that when things go not the right way, we're kind of in denial about it. We say it can't be. It can't be us, but that attitude can have a terrible impact not only on the people involved but their families as well. So we need to address that. By the way, Coach Elliot, Beach, Moroccan, I have a list of questions to go for an hour, but if anyone wants to jump in, it's an open mic. Rabbi Sean is happy to take any question. Don't be shy. Just let me know.
All right. Well,
That's my
firstly,
name.
hi,
I'm the shy man here.
hi, hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
Firstly, I think what you do is one of the most beautiful things to do. I think it is such a mitzvah. So thank you. You basically answered my question was more like the demographic of Jews that are seen in the prison system and the role that you play, knowing that, I mean, they're in such confinement and in such a controlled environment. I wanted to know, because to put it back, I'm in Australia, and we have a quite an ultra orthodox Jewish woman in our prison system here. That was a big case, and as a community, we were trying to find out ways to assist her while also, not condoning her behavior. And the government and our system has made that really, really difficult for kosher food, for access to Jewish life, access to holidays. I wanted to know what that was like in the States and whether you've seen any pushback towards that or the opposite.
So as far as accommodations, we go back to a very famous Jew, may his soul rest in peace, Rabbi Meir Kahana. He, all the way back in the 60s, 70s, he got locked up by the federal government more than once, and at that time there were no provisions for kosher food, and the government was treating him like a domestic terrorist, and yet he's an Orthodox Jew. He fought. He sued the state. He had lawyers, and because of his efforts, kosher, any federal prison. So let's break down. Let me take a step back. There's three different type of facilities. There's federal prison. There is state prison, and then there are county jails. Jail is where you stay. It's where innocent people stay until they come to trial. There are no guilty people in prison. Everybody is pre-trial for the most part. So jails are counties. That's one type of government that has to be dealt with. Then there's the state of Illinois, in this case, the state of Illinois where I work with. And then there's the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So the Federal Bureau of Prisons is very good about all accommodations. There's laws passed by Congress, religious persons act that religious persons that are incarcerated are entitled to all rights. And so they're very strict about this in the federal prisons. And they probably have teeth. In other words, there's consequences if somebody is caught not following those rules. The state, as you go to the other levels, though, the state prisons, there's also, the state has passed laws, they have to give kosher, but as we speak, there's an active class action suit brought against the Department of Corrections in Illinois of not properly implementing the law, and they're not properly giving kosher food. So there's a class action suit going on right now. So the state, as much as they have the rules, they're having a lot of difficulty actually implementing the rules. Then we move to county. So the main county I deal with is Cook County and Lake County, and Cook County Jail actually does a very good job of providing kosher meals, and so does Lake County. It may have to do with the fact that the state has 20 or 30 different kitchens they have to deal with. Cook County, Lake County, they have one central kitchen, and they have a company doing it, and they're mandated by federal law to provide religious meals. So me and my son, we actually, go in from time to time. They're actually doing, the counties are doing a pretty fair job. But however, Lake County Jail, they had to have a whole fight with them to go and put tefillin on with a man. They were very hesitant. In Lake County, in the state of Illinois, we're able to go in, and every place lets the men light menorahs, which open flames are an issue. In the county jails, Lake County Jail, they made me do it behind. They wouldn't let the man touch the fire. They had to watch me light the menorah for him. The counties are better in some things. The state, the federal lets everything. They're the best when it comes to, allowing the Jewish rights. But if this woman you're talking about is in a county or a state, it could be more difficult depending on which state and which county. And the thing is that the law is on the side of the individual in custody. Any individual in custody of any faith is permitted and able to get everything they want. In McHenry County, one of the outlying counties, the security chief would not allow me to even bring tefillin in.
Oh my gosh.
And right now the Jewish man isn't there, so I met with the sheriff of McHenry County, who himself is actually Jewish. I actually put tefillin on the sheriff in his office, and he said he's not fighting with the security chief. I mean, if push comes to shove, I would have to get a congressman or some politician involved to put pressure on a county if they had to do something. But sometimes we have to, it takes a lot of patience. You have to understand, you have to know when to push. Lawsuits don't always solve the problem. They could just it could be in court for 5 years and nothing happens. Sometimes negotiating with the facilities is a better way, but it requires a lot of patience and a lot of wisdom on how to speak to the security individuals that just don't get it's the law. And they're just saying, well, the law says if it's a security problem, security trumps it. And I'm trying to say, what is the problem with tefillin? I've been going with people for 45 years, and nobody ever did anything wrong with tefillin. Well, they could, so it's getting the rights, actually getting the correctional facilities to comply with the law is not easy. So I could understand why, there's a lot of difficulties that could be run into.
Rabbi, guys, again, just say, hey, I want to ask something, but I'm happy to go. Let me ask you this, Rabbi Shimon. Most people in prisons, just on the nature of population, there's not that many Jews in the world. Most people in a given prison or jail are not Jewish. So I'm curious, have you done any work or have any non-Jewish people sought out your counsel, your advice, tried to connect with you? And second part of that question is, I understand you do some work with the Noahide community. If I'm correct, could you just explain a little bit about what interactions, if any, you've had with people that aren't Jewish in the prison system and what it means to be a Noahide? What's that all about, and what do you do in that area?
Okay, so in answer to the first part of the question, a good 30% of the individuals in custody that identify as Jewish are not.
Really?
And rabbis going in um, are expected to minister to any individual identifying as Jewish. And so we regularly meet non Jewish individuals. Sometimes uh, um, we could have 3 out of 10 in a room that are actually Jewish. Uh, that's how sometimes it can be flipped that way. So definitely we are coming in contact with non Jewish individuals. Now, Judaism does not feel that somebody who isn't Jewish or doesn't convert to Jewish uh, is is condemned and is going to burn in hell somewhere. That's not what Judaism believes. Judaism believes that only Jews are meant to practice Judaism. In fact, we don't seek converts because we are taught by our sages that God is one God for all human beings, and Jews were given an additional responsibility at Sinai to be teachers, to be a light unto the nations, but that all human beings can go to heaven. They don't have to be Jewish to go to heaven. And there's 7 rules, 7 laws to follow. And those were given to Noah when he came off the ark. Adam got 6, Noah got a 7th, so they're called the laws of Noah. And I have in one federal facility I go to every month, I have a special class which the government recognizes. There's in President Trump during his first term passed a law called the First Step Act, and if an individual in custody learn certain courses which improve their humanity and their ethical and moral behavior, the government will give them extra days early. They can get out early. So I teach a course in Marion, Illinois, where Jonathan Pollard spent time decades ago. And in Marion, Illinois, I have a group of 8 to 10 non-Jewish men, and I'm teaching them the 7 laws of Noah. And when they complete that course over 7 or 8 months, the government will allow them to leave prison earlier.
Studying the laws of Noah, then they'll be able to leave prison sooner, you're saying?
Yes.
Wow. That is amazing.
That is so
Okay.
interesting.
Coach Elliot, guys, what are you thinking here? We have a really rare treat over here.
I'm
I
just
don't want
mind
to.
blown by that last part. I really
Yeah,
am.
that literally just
Wow.
like blew my mind a little bit. But
As far as I
you were
know, as
speaking of
far as I
some of,
know, yeah, as far as I know, presently, I asked the Aleph Institute, who gives the course that's recognized. As far as I know, I'm the only rabbi in the United States that has done this course, and men have got, the credits for it. So it's not widespread yet, but it's a maybe I'm a pilot program, but it's really exciting to do. And she has a rabbi teaching 8 to 10 um, men of all different backgrounds and criminal histories, and they're learning about these 7 laws. They're not going to go out worse knowing it. Definitely going to help them.
Question.
Yes.
Has anybody ever approached you looking to convert after these classes?
Well, this is only the second cycle I'm doing these classes, but like I said, 30 to 40% of the people I see coming to Jewish service are not Jewish, and in 45 years, exactly 0 individuals have actually come out and converted. People have asked about it, and people have learned about it, but I don't know. To date, not one person has yet ever converted. And I don't encourage them to. I just say, be a good citizen, don't commit any more crimes, and you're fine in my books. And I think it is re-entry is almost like serving a second sentence for Jewish and non-Jewish men. Society as a whole is pretty rough on people with records, and there's millions of people like that. It's like crazy that society as a whole is hard on them. So just coming out is such a tall order So I don't think these people ever get around to getting to the conversion part. They, till they get housing, till they get a job, till they, break through some of the prejudices out there in society. It's very annoying and it's very time consuming, and they usually probably never get around to the conversion part. I don't think it's because they don't want to. It just has never happened.
So you had said that about 30%, or I guess only 30% of the people who identify as Jewish are actually Jewish.
No, the other way around.
Oh, so 70% are actually Jewish.
Yeah.
So what are the others? Are they just a, like Black Hebrew Israelites that they don't know where else?
Part. Number one, uh, thankfully, the prison chaplaincy system has recognized that Messianics and Hebrew Israelites should not be in the same service as Jews. It's three separate categories, and there are some places, unfortunately, that still mix those groups together, and it's a whole mess. It's terrible when that happens. Most places understand you cannot mix Messianic, Black Hebrew Israelite, and Jewish together. So, of the people in the Jewish group itself, there are people that were adopted by Jewish people, but they never themselves actually converted to Judaism. There's people from mixed marriages that have a Jewish father but not a Jewish mother. There's somebody who might have a Jewish wife or a Jewish girlfriend, and therefore they want to study, they want to come to the Jewish service. Then you just have a group of people that are, well, they call themselves truth seekers. In one, if they do go through 10 years, they may explore at different times Baptist, Buddhist, Muslim, Catholic, Jewish. So they're passing through and they're sort of like trying out and see what might work for them. They're just they're disenfranchised of what they were doing, so they say that okay, for that time they're coming to say they're Jewish.
Interesting. Guys, I have a few more, but just
Well, my there
yeah.
was a follow-up I wanted to ask also.
Sure.
And you started to touch on some of it, but I imagine that you were going to have some difficulty, getting things into certain prisons and, going around those. And I'm glad actually to hear that. It sounds like there have been laws passed to kind of help you work or help you navigate that. But I was going to say, or what I was going to ask her, what are some of the other difficulties? Like you sort of answered one. Like I was thinking that tefillin might be difficult because it could be used to harm oneself potentially. But like, what are some of the difficulties that you do run into?
Okay, so there really is not. Let's get through what is easier to do. Every place allows a prayer book, a Torah, different learning materials. Like I say, now there's tablets that have Jewish content. That's not hard to get in. Let's go through the holidays. To bring a shofar in, or teach. A rabbi's not actually going to come in the prison on Rosh Hashanah, so sometimes it's difficult to teach one of the men to blow the shofar. Shofar, they're not going to put up a big deal about usually. But what happens if I come to a group where the one guy who can blow the shofar really isn't Jewish? That comes an issue. But it's not actually bringing in the shofar. When it comes to Sukkot, although the lulav, the palm branch, it's big, it's tall, it looks scary, but after close examination, that doesn't turn out to be a problem. Now, putting up a sukkah on the inside, that is a problem in places. How do we do it, and where does it stand, and who's going to watch it on the off hours? So putting up a sukkah on the inside could be difficult, but I've accomplished that. We've gone sometimes we drive in on the middle days of sukkahs with a portable sukkah and just bring a pop-up one so the guys at least could do one day. Other prisons we've accomplished to have a full portable sukkah erected inside the prison. And then in the federal, again, they do that. So sukkah is a little more difficult, but it could be done. The most difficult ones are candles, matches. Most places don't have smoking anymore. Most places don't have matches. So to be able to do Shabbat candles and Hanukkah candles, there's different forms of resistance in different facilities on how to get that done. Like in the county jails, like Lake County only let me do it behind a glass. Cook County, they let us come in, but we have to be there, and so I'm not going to have somebody come in all 8 nights. They won't leave. And the state and the federal, they have actual menorahs. They let the menorahs in. Maybe not everybody has their own menorah, but they get the group together and one person lights the menorah. They all say Amen. So candles are a problem. Tefillin, in the state of Illinois now, men are allowed to have it in their own cell. They're allowed to have it. They're allowed to hold it in their own property. But Cook County Jail, no. We have to have somebody on staff has a pair of tefillin, and we try to get them to bring the tefillin to the men to put on. But it does, it doesn't happen every day. Tefillin is hard. Talis usually they let. Tzitzis they'll let. Yarmulkes, believe it or not, are not easy sometimes. They don't want people going around with head coverings, but that could be an issue. So,
Can I ask? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but why would yarmulkes be an issue? How?
you could hide a weapon underneath.
Where?
Where?
I mean, I'm
you see
looking at
you
your
see this
yarmulke
right
right
in
now.
here. Here, look what's hidden in my yarmulke. I have this piece of metal here. See?
Hey, the rabbi brought a little trick under the hat there. Okay.
You look.
In,
See, this is in my yarmulke.
Golden
All right.
prison, anything is a
Oh,
weapon.
I see, I
You
see.
see? And you could do with this piece of metal a lot of things.
Let me, Rabbi, let me ask you this I think something that we all struggle with. I speak for myself personally, right? I struggle with it. Why do you think it is that for so many people, you talked about when Jewish people maybe do something and they get out, or even if they don't get out, even the families of that Jew, there's a black mark on them in the community, in the congregation. Why do you think it is that it's so difficult to be non-judgmental towards your fellow Jew? That is such a challenge, and with it being such a challenge, it's such an important thing to be able to do. What is the difficulty in that, and what is the Chabad approach to the question of not judging your fellow Jew? Why is that important?
Okay, so first of all, I don't think it's very hard to understand the judgmental nature. Let's say let's start with white collar, okay? The guy's on the committee of the synagogue and they found out he's embezzling. How's that going to look? I mean, the people are going to say you're a thief and they're going to be mad at the whole family. Especially if you cost the synagogue lots of money. I'm not talking about a guy stealing. I've met pushka thieves in prison. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about big time, people who had access to they were the treasurers, they were the presidents, and they ended up misusing synagogue funds. So you can understand why everybody's going to be mad at him and the whole family. Then we all know what's in the news today. Every day, what do you hear out of Congress? What story is in the news every day in Congress?
Right?
The Epstein files, right?
Okay, that one, yeah. True.
Okay. Who do you want in your synagogue that's name was on the Epstein files?
Oh
Probably
my
none,
gosh.
right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's a very emotional, hot button issue. And you can understand why people will be nervous about it. Why would most synagogues are families with kids. Why would you want to have somebody in the synagogue who, is one of the people that's might be being thought about with this? It's a very emotional, and people are not rational. Once you touch a raw nerve in people and you remove intellect from it, it just becomes a raw, emotional, very hot button issue. You can't talk to anybody. It's too emotional. So, if, for instance, at Hinda, in my house on Tuesday, I'm having a Megillah reading. You know why?
What's
Because
that?
people can't come to terms with certain people that are out, serve their time, but we don't think they should be by the synagogue. So I have a Megillah reading. I also have a Hanukkah party. I also have a shofar blowing. I have I have a sukkah party for people that are just not. Society and synagogues aren't open yet to overcome that hot button issue.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
even the white collar crime, someone who's an embezzler, it's just, can you imagine that guy going back to the same synagogue again? Could you
I hear
imagine?
you.
Can you imagine if you were the rabbi or you were a congregant at that synagogue? Wouldn't you find it hard? So I think let's be human. We're talking about very human things. People find it hard if you lose trust in someone, it's easier to judge them, right? And it's less easy to be non-judgmental. Um, I'm visiting people inside a prison. I'm not part of that congregation and that congregation and that congregation. The question is, what would happen if the same thing happens in my congregation? What would I do? What if I had to visit one of my guys in prison? What they did that? Would they be welcome back in? I can't give you the answer to that. I mean,
So
it's a very hard issue, and it's not easy. The Chabad position is we uh, we need to love our fellow. We need to know that we don't get defined by the worst mistake we ever made in our life. Chabad doesn't even like to call somebody Reform, Orthodox, Conservative. Just a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, no labels. And certainly they shouldn't be labeled with a crime. They're not a crime. They're a Jew that committed a crime, that paid their time, and now they should be able to have a second chance and a fresh start. We believe in second chances. We believe in fresh starts. That's the that's what we believe in. And Chabad is going around to all types of disenfranchised Jewish people that the Israelis that go who knows where they go in the world. They're visiting Buddhist temples. They're going to India. They're going here there, and they're totally not observing many of the commandments. And we just come on in. Yeah, you could put on tefillin. Yes, you could eat kosher meal. Yes, you could do this. So we do our best to embrace everybody and understand we live in a very weak generation where there's a lot of assimilation. There's a lot of pain in society. There's a lot of with social media. Come on TikTok. How much is true that goes on that gets on the airways every day?
well,
And especially people who what people say about Jews and what people say about Israel. I mean, it's we live in a crazy society. So uh,
I actually, as long as you mention that, and I'm very sorry, I got a little bit late. I was with my niece, but have you noticed a rise in anti-Semitism as a result of what's happening in the prisons specifically?
I specifically, after October 7, have been polling my clients inside different facilities, and they are not reporting a rise. Maybe because they don't get to see TikTok and Instagram and X and this and that in prison. They don't have access to that. Maybe there could be more viral anti-Semitism that's spread out on the street than in the prison. The prison might be safer than the street these days. My clients have not reported a rise.
that's interesting.
No, but it makes sense if they don't have the social media egging them along with 30-second clips of nonsense.
Right.
Um, Rabbi, big picture, given your experience, what do you think is the most broken part of the criminal justice system and in the prison system in America? Because it doesn't seem to be working so well.
Well, I'll tell you a story that happened during the first Step Act, during President Trump's first term. I was Aleph Institute, which is an organization national, which does what I do, but on a national level. They asked me to go to Washington. They paid a ticket, and I was supposed to go to the Illinois senators' and congressmen to lobby them to vote for the First Step Act, which is criminal justice reform. And I remember that I went in with the lobbyist. The lobbyist was a former prosecutor from Utah, and he came over to the side of seeing how important criminal reform is. And we went into Senator Kirk at the Times office, and what this prosecutor was telling the reason I came is, because I go firsthand. I see what happens to the families. I see how what a failed system it is, just to give firsthand. But what the lobbyist said, he said that in Texas they started something, and this is what the federal law was based on what they did in Texas. What happened in Texas? Texas, they had a lot of prisons. They were spending billions of dollars on the prisons, and they decided to try something new. They decided to get smart on the front end and on the back end. The front end is at a time the federal judges and the state judges lost all discretion. There was just became these rules that you have to give these many years, these many years. There were no mitigating circumstances. You can never change it. And there were just people sitting in prison for decades. And so they said, first in Texas, they said, let's give judges the ability to consider all the circumstances, and you give them the ability to give a downward sentence that maybe in this particular case. Then the backside is every person who came into the Texas prison, they went through an evaluation of when they're getting out, what their crime was, and they started an exit strategy with each individual. And then while they were in prison, they were already working on a plan of what's going to happen when they get out. And when they got out, they already had things set up where they could be working, where they could be re-entering. And it was so successful in Texas that they ended up closing numerous prisons. Their recidivism rates went down, and they saved millions and millions of dollars. So if things are done the right way, that's an example of, the whole system. Now, what happened with the First Step Act was, you know what Swiss cheese looks like? That's what a bill in Congress and Senate looks like. It comes in a whole piece, and then whenever you have to satisfy this one, that one, that one, that one, it comes. The bill, it certainly wasn't what they did in Texas. That's not what it came out, but it was way watered down. So, how to take away these long, unjustified sentences, and then the main thing is to start working with reentry as soon as a man gets out. Engage people and teach them how to improve their lives, and have an exit strategy and a plan for when they get out. I have a man in Illinois. He did 25 years in the state prison. Then he got sent to Rushville, Illinois. If you don't know what Rushville, Illinois is, anybody who is commits a certain type of offense where they have to be registered for the rest of their life, they could be civilly committed to go to have further treatment because they're still considered too dangerous. So I have a man who went another 12 years to Rushville, but when he got out of Rushville, he had Liberty Healthcare, which is the company that was working with him. They had an exit strategy, and then for the next 2 years, they worked on plans with him on how to gain his independence. Now it's 5 years later. He's living independently. He has a revenue stream, and he's not going back anywhere, and he's safe. So again, it was because of that support and that exit strategy. That's the only way this man was able to survive. So what's broken in the system is just throwing somebody and warehousing them and putting them away for many years, and then having nothing for them and no plan for what happens when they get out. Not planning for what happens when they get out is ridiculous.
Right, because we're just costing ourselves more money.
Right.
Hurting people. I have one final question for you, Rabbi. I tried to save the deepest question for last here. So,
before you go, Kosher, before you go, can I ask him?
oh, please, yeah,
The
go
last
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Thank you again for coming on and for sharing with us and taking this time. It's really appreciated. At the beginning, you were talking about the importance of reform, repentance, and that resonates with me also professionally for for whatever reasons. Is that only within, let's say, or do those lessons only apply within, let's say, the context of a prison system within our society that you were talking about, or can it also apply in conflict, in a case of war with your enemy? Or is it different in that case?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but let's say just in life itself, uh, there's always going to be conflicts in any group. In the U.S. Senate and Congress, in the Illinois, in politics today, it's very polarized. It's like a war between sides. So to have this polarized society is definitely not healthy. To be able to listen to someone with an opposing view, and a point of view, and sit and just listen and do active listening, ask them if you understood correctly, and have a good conversation. Conversation and dialogue, takes away a lot of this vitriol that's going on, and it's just ridiculous today. It's not just prison. It's like
Yeah.
nobody wants to forgive anybody for anything.
So,
Rabbi, if I may
so
be more specific, I think what he's trying to ask is what is the Jewish view on should we forgive our enemies and the Palestinians?
that's more. You went more specific than I was more broad.
I think that's where you were trying
In
to
I,
go.
general,
I
the
was,
question is,
I was more broad.
but
But
in general, when the Jewish people are at war with another nation, we have the idea of forgiving the individual, but is it possible on a nation to nation level to have reconciliation if the proper steps are taken? Or we also have the idea that there's something called Amalek. So what's the Jewish,
Yeah.
view
Well,
on these types of things?
uh, again, I'm not. The specifics, I think that in general, um, again, I went through Maimonides, and and part of his code was also talking about war. And most of what I read is that before a war is even embarked upon, there's always a peace effort made. That if people want to leave, or if people want to, you know, agree to certain conditions, then of course there can be peace. There doesn't have to be annihilation. I think Amalek is a exception to the rule, where God said you have to totally annihilate, never forget Amalek. But again, the exception proves the rule. That's what an exception does. The rule is that any nation we go out after, we do. If they want to offer peace to us, we can come to peace with them. Again, not at the risk of our own security. I'm talking about a real peace, not a fake peace. And I think something like Amalek is an exceptional case. But that's the rule. Is we try to come to some type of a peace. So,
so
in other words, if the Arab nations around us, what is it, 22, 23, they
Yeah.
agreed not to shoot us and send targets into us and be at peace with us, we would love that. But if they're saying we'll only be at peace with you is if you leave, if you guys leave, or you like give all your land up to us, that's ridiculous. That's not peace. That's not peace. Means
if I
you don't shoot at us and we don't shoot at you, and we all live peacefully next to each other. That's what
So,
peace is.
Rabbi, if I understand you correctly, we should always have an open heart for even our enemies to reform and rehabilitate themselves.
Yes, we could have an open heart to every human being in the world, Jew and non-Jew alike. And
Beautiful.
what are you supposed to do? Again, we're not supposed to be idiots. I mean, if there's virulent anti-Semites that are every single day they're railing against us, obviously we don't have to buddy up with them and become friendly with them. We have to have boundaries too and protect ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask the final question here because I know that you have a lot going on and appreciate your time. Last question for you, Rabbi, is when I think about the essence of the neshama, the real essence of the Jewish soul, Chabad teaches, and I don't know if this was described in previous teachings before the Tanya. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Tanya was probably the first text to really give over the idea that the Jewish soul, inside of the Jewish soul, there's literally a spark of God. There's a spark of Hashem inside of the soul of the Jew. So, how does this idea kind of impact the way that you view Jewish people who have committed truly the worst of the worst crimes?
How does we have inside of us different parts. We have a godly soul, and we have a animal soul, and so there's a battle that goes on every day. We have free choice, and if we fail, that doesn't mean we have to give up. We are able to, like we say, that's what repentance is about. But it's a constant battle. We are not robots. We are not AI robots that just get programmed by God just to just do good all the time. Where we have this battle that's going on all the time, and you know that is, but it doesn't. The part in us which is allows us to make the choice to do wrong doesn't extinguish ever. It never puts out. Sort of like that spark in us, like the pilot light. It never goes out. There's a part of us that can't be extinguished. We could contaminate. We could pollute parts of ourselves, but we can never put out that essence. All that little spark, all the way down, never gets corrupted. It could get covered. It could get again tarnished, but we could always repolish it. We could always blow off the dust, and we could always, get it to look good again.
Man, that's so beautiful. Quickly, Rabbi Shimon, how can people support what you do? Can people follow you on this account and message you, or is there a nonprofit aspect to this? That are you fundraising to help continue your work, and how can people get in touch and support your efforts with working with Jewish people in jail and helping them reconnect and get back into society?
Yeah, I just put the website in the chat, hindahelps.com. And if anybody wants to see what we do in our programs, anybody's welcome to go to Hinda Helps, Hinda helps.com. And
HINDA.
like Linda, but with an H. Hinda.
Okay.
Hinda Helps.
Links don't work in the chat sometimes, so guys, it's hindahelps.com.
Hinda helps, and guys, if anyone, just click on Rabbi Shimon's profile here, and I'm sure he'd be happy to send you in a private message the link to help.
Right,
Rabbi, you really
is this recorded or?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if I could get a copy, because we have
Sure.
we have a social media company where they may take clips of this and put them, make some clips out of this.
Rabbi, thank you so much. And I'll just end by saying that the work that you do for me, it really embodies what the Rebbe talked about, that every Jew is a diamond. And even if there's some mud on the diamond, that's why God created us, to clean off the mud and to reveal the brilliance that is every Jew, every neshama. You go to the darkest places and you find the light there, and you spread the light there. So thank you so much for the work that you do from strength to strength. Hashem should continue to give you energy and strength in your work and for the lives that you impact.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your
Amen.
time this evening.
Thank you.
100%.
Rabbi, just personally from the TikTok community, thank you so much for all your work with Danielle.
Right.
We really
And if you want to make a
appreciate it.
follow-up sometime, just let me know.
Thank you.
Happy to. All
Okay.
right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Shalom, shalom.
Take care.
Bye.
Shalom.
Shalom.